Welcome back to the Cozy Rosy Crochet channel, and today I am sharing with you square number 7 from the Cable Comforts Heritage 8 to create a beautiful heirloom sampler at the heart of the Cable Comforts collection. Each of the unique cable squares showcases a different motif, from bold braids to delicate twists, designed to challenge and inspire you to create with confidence. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and of course the notification bell so you never miss out another one of my crochet patterns or tutorials again. If you're new to crochet cables, don't be put off by how complicated the patterns look. Crochet cable stitches are simply made using post stitches, and it's how and where those post stitches are worked that creates the intricate cable patterns. And don't worry, every even numbered row in the square is just worked using US single crochets or UK double crochets, so you'll get a little reprieve after each row of those post stitches. I will be using US crochet terms throughout this video, but you will also find a link in the description box below to view the written pattern on my website, or you can opt to purchase the ebook, which is available in both US or UK terms. And that contains all 8 of the written square patterns, detailed cable charts and additional photo tutorials. Plus, you'll find details of the stitch multiples to transform each of the squares into an individual blanket. To create your own Heritage 8 blanket, you'll need to make 3 of each of the blanket squares for a total of 24 squares that are joined together before adding an edging around the whole of the blanket. So the materials that I'm using in this tutorial is Stylecraft Special Aran. This is shade Silver, which is shade number 1203. So this is an Aran weight, the equivalent of a worsted weight, and we're going to be using a hook size of 5mm with this yarn. This will create quite a firm fabric. If you do crochet tightly, I would recommend going up a hook size because it's going to be a bit difficult to work around these post stitches. You're also going to need a pair of scissors and a darning needle, but that's just to weave in those ends at the end. So gather all your materials and let's get started. We're going to start by making a slip knot and placing that onto our hook. And this square begins with a chain of 33. So we're just going to make a chain of 33 and I'll meet you back to continue on to row 1. Once you have that chain of 33, I'm going to be working into the back bumps of my chain. So I'm just going to insert my hook underneath the back loop of the chain, ready to work a US single crochet. That is the same as a UK double crochet. We're going to work 1 single crochet into each chain across the row and we'll end with a stitch count of 32. So at the end of row 1 you should have a stitch count of 32 stitches, and our stitch count will remain the same throughout this pattern. Doesn't matter which row you're working, you should always end with a total of 32 stitches. Now row 2 is another nice easy one. We are simply going to make our turning chain of 1 and then work 1 single crochet into each stitch across back to the end of the row, making sure that we maintain that stitch count of 32 single crochets. So continue on to work row 2, then I'll meet you to start our pattern with row 3. So at the end of row 2 you should still have your stitch count of 32 stitches, and for row 3 we are setting up the cable ovals pattern. We start by making a chain of 1 and turning, and we're going to begin by working 1 single crochet into the same as our chain 1, and we'll then single crochet into the next 2 stitches. So that's 1 and 2. So at this point you should have 1 single crochet in each of the first 3 stitches altogether. We're then going to work 1 front post double crochet around the single crochet 2 rows below. So we're working around the post back down in row 1. If you're not sure where your post stitches are, it's going to be the post underneath the stitch you're about to work. So we've done 3 stitches, so that's 1, 2 and 3 posts, and we're working around the next post 2 rows below. So we're on row 3, that's row 2 and that's row 1. We've done 1, 2, 3 single crochets, which leaves the next post the one we need to work around. We yarn over the hook, 1, 2, 3, and we're working around that next post. So we go in from the front and back out the front. We yarn over the hook and bring our hook up to the height of our current row, before completing our US double crochet as normal. So we yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. And we are then going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. It's important to note that when you work a post stitch, you're going to skip the stitch behind it, directly behind it in this case. So we're not going to work into that stitch. So our next stitch is going to be the next 4 stitches, but we skip that one behind. So we're working 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. So that's 2, 3, and 4. We're then going to work 1 front post double crochet around the next post stitch. So we've worked 4 single crochets. This is our last post that we worked. So 1, 2, 3. There's the 4 single crochets, the posts for those. So we're going to work around that next post. Insert our hook around the post from the front, out the front. So it looks like that. And then we work our double crochet as normal, yarning over, bring our hook up to the height of our current row, pull through 2 and pull through 2. So there should be 4 unworked posts between these 2 post stitches that we've made. We're going to repeat this pattern of working 4 single crochets followed by our front post double crochet around the single crochet 2 rows below until we have just 3 stitches remaining. So remember to skip that stitch behind that front post you've just worked and then insert your hook into the next stitch, making sure you've left 1. And then we're working 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. That's number 4. And then we're going to front post double crochet around the single crochet 2 rows below. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's our next post to work. We yarn over, insert our hook from the front out the back. Oh no, from the front out the front. We yarn over, bring our loop up and complete our double crochet. And we're just going to repeat that all the way across until we have just 3 stitches remaining. We skip that stitch behind the post, work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. That's 4. And then we work a front post double crochet around the next single crochet 2 rows below. This is my final post stitch. Oops. And we should have just 3 stitches remaining because we're going to skip this one. And then we have 1, 2, 3 stitches remaining. And we're simply going to work 1 single crochet into each of the last 3 stitches. So we've skipped 1 and then we're working 1 single crochet into each of the last 3. Oops, single, not a double. Lovely. So at the end of row 3, we're looking nice and boring, but we have some texture. And if you are making this square, you should have 6 post stitches at the moment. I'm not going to give you post stitches throughout because the pattern has different ones as we go through. But you should still have a stitch count of 32 stitches. Now for every even row in this pattern, we are going to be working the same. We're going to be doing a turning chain of 1 and then working 1 single crochet into each stitch across back to the end of the row, double checking as we do it that we still have 32 stitches. And going into row 5, you're going to see why the cable oval square is unique compared to all the other squares in the Heritage 8. This is the only square where we're going to work into a single crochet 2 rows below after we've worked our setup row. But don't worry, I'm going to guide you so that you know exactly where to place those posts. So going into row 5, we begin with our turning chain of 1, and we're going to work 1 single crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1 and 1 single crochet into the next stitch. We're then going to work the first of our special stitches, which is a front post double crochet right leaning combination, and that just means that it's worked over 2 stitches. So with this stitch we start with the post stitch element of the 2 stitches. So we're going to yarn over the hook. We're not working into the stitch, we're working into that post stitch 2 rows below. So once you've yarned over, you're going to insert your hook underneath that post stitch, making sure you don't catch the top of the stitch, just go straight underneath. We're going to yarn over, bring our loop up, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So that's the first part of this right leaning front post double. We're going to skip that stitch behind because that post stitch counts as it, and then we're going to finish by working a single crochet into the stitch which is in line with the post stitch 2 rows below. So we skip one stitch and work a single crochet into the next. And we're going to work another one of those, and you see that we do not have a post stitch here to work around. So we're going to work the first part around the next single crochet post 2 rows below. So we skip the next stitch. So this is that stitch's post there. So we're going to skip that one and work around the next. So we have our post, which is just to the side of our stitch, and we're going to work around that next post. So we yarn over the hook and insert, we skip this post and go in the front, out the front. We yarn over, bring our loop up, pull through 2 and pull through 2. So you can see that you've got one post in between the last post worked and the one we've just worked. This is 2 rows below because that's the previous row, and this is the second row below. So we're working around the post stitch in row 3. That post work counts for that stitch there, so we're going to work a single crochet into the next stitch. So we're skipping this one and working into the next stitch, and that completes that right leaning 2 combination. You should have one post in between these post stitches which is unworked. Now we get to work the left leaning combination. So with the right leaning, we start with the front post. With the left leaning, we're going to start by working the single crochet element of that combination. So we're going to single crochet into the next stitch. Then we're going to work around the post directly underneath where we worked that single crochet. So it's going to be right next to this right leaning post. So we're going to yarn over the hook and insert our hook around the post underneath that single crochet we've just worked, and work a front post double crochet. So that completes that stitch because it's worked over 2 stitches. So we've done the single crochet and then the front post. That front post counts as that next stitch, and we are then going to work our next front post left leaning combination. So we start with a single crochet into that next stitch. Should also be in line with the post stitch below. And then we are going to work the front post around the front post 2 rows below. So we're yarning over, inserting our hook underneath that previous post. Oops. And then we yarn over, bring our loop up, pull through 2 and pull through 2. So at this point, you should be looking a little bit like that. Might have to encourage these to lean because we haven't got much for them to lean into at the moment. We're then going to work one single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. It's important to remember that that front post counts for that stitch there. So we skip that one and we're working one single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. Now we're going to repeat this pattern the whole way across, but don't worry, I'm going to take you through it once more as well. So we're going to start with that right leaning combination. So we start with our front post double around the post 2 rows below. We're going to skip that stitch behind and work a single crochet into the next. So that was the first front post double right combination. We're going to work a second one. So we're going to yarn over the hook. We skip the next stitch, working around that next post. So we have a post here, we skip one and we work around the next post, working that front post double crochet. We skip one stitch behind, working a single crochet into the next. So we have those front post double crochet right leaning combinations done. And now we're going to work 2 left leaning. So we start by working a single crochet into the next stitch before working the post stitch around that post directly underneath that single crochet so that they are right next to each other. We skip the stitch behind to work a single crochet into the next before working a front post around that next post stitch below. We're going to skip that stitch behind and work one single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So we skip the next stitch, working a front post double crochet around the post 2 rows below. We skip that stitch and work a single crochet. We're then going to repeat that. So we skip the next stitch, working around the post 2 rows below. So there's 1 left. So we skip 1 post and work around the next. Oops, I'm caught. There we are. We skip 1 stitch and work 1 single crochet into the next. So that's those 2 right leaning, and now we're going to work 2 left leaning. So for the left, we single crochet into the next stitch before working around the post stitch directly below. We skip the stitch, ready to repeat that left leaning again. So we single crochet, and this time we're going to work around that post stitch 2 rows below. My hook's misbehaving today. We finish this row by working 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 because we're going to skip that stitch for our post. So that's 1 and 2. This is probably the most challenging row of this whole square, but we've got it over and done with, and you should be looking a little bit like that. So for each of the sections you should have your post stitches carrying up, and you've got 2 new post stitches that we've created as well. Your stitch count should still be 32. And now for row 6, of course, we're going to have that nice reprieve where we do our chain of 1 and work 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So at the end of row 6, you should still have your stitch count of 32. And going into row 7, we begin with that turning chain of 1. We're going to work 1 single crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1, and then we are straight into our cable pattern. We're going to start by working that front post double crochet right leaning 2 times. So we're going to yarn over the hook, ready to work around that post 2 rows below with our front post double crochet. We're going to skip that stitch behind, which is actually a little bit further away than you think. So it's that one we're skipping. We've worked into that one, we're skipping 1, and from the front we're working in line with that previous post to work that single crochet. Let's work our second right leaning combination. We yarn over and we're going to work around that post 2 rows below. We bring our loop up, pull through 2, pull through 2. Once again, I'm straightening mine out so I can see these stitches. We're skipping that one and working a single crochet in line with that previous post. So that's extending these lines up. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So that's 1 and 2, and then we're going to start that left leaning combination. It's important to remember that the left leaning starts with a single crochet into the next stitch before we work a front post double around the post 2 rows below. So that was 1. We skip that stitch and then we're going to work the second one by starting with our single crochet into the next stitch and working a front post double around that post 2 rows below. That's the end of the repeat on this one, so we have to go straight into the next right leaning combination. So we're going to yarn over the hook and we're going straight around that post 2 rows below. We yarn over, bring our loop up, pull through 2, pull through 2. So we have 2 post stitches together. So when we look at the back, we need to skip 1 stitch for each of them. Then we're going to work a single crochet in line with that previous post. So that was the first right leaning, and we're going to work the second right leaning. So we yarn over, we're going around this next post here, bring our loop up, pull through 2, pull through 2. We're skipping 1 stitch for the post stitch, and then we're working a single crochet in line with the previous post stitch. So it should look like that, and you've got your 2 posts together there. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So that's number 1 and that's number 2. And we're ready to work our front post double crochet left leaning combination. So we start with a single crochet. We are then going to work our front post double crochet around that post. We skip 1 stitch before starting the next combination, working into the next one, and then we are working our front post double crochet around that post 2 rows below. We're going to repeat that for a final time. So we've just finished our left leaning, working that post stitch, and now we're going into our right post stitch combination. So we yarn over the hook because we start with our front post. So we've yarned over, insert underneath that post from 2 rows below, bring your loop up, pull through 2, pull through 2. We've got the left and the right front post together, so we need to skip 2 stitches behind, 1 for each post, and we're single crocheting into the next stitch to complete that right combination. Let's work a second right combination. So we're yarning over, ready to work around that next post stitch. Make that front post, double crochet, we're skipping the one behind, and we're working a single crochet into the next. Going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And then we're ready for our left leaning front post combination. So we're going to start with a single crochet, and then we work around that post just 2 rows below. We need to skip that stitch behind, working a single crochet into the next in line with the previous post stitch. And we finish with that front post to finish that left leaning combination. Because we've worked that post, we're going to skip that stitch behind and work 1 single crochet into that last stitch. Row 8 we know is our lovely relaxing row where we make our turning chain of 1, and we are working 1 single crochet into each stitch across, making sure that you're maintaining your stitch count of 32 stitches. Continue on and I will meet you for row 9. So going into row 9, we begin with that turning chain of 1, and I think you're going to like row 9 because it's just straight post stitches. There's no leaning in this row. So once you've done your chain 1, we're going to work a single crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1, and then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So that's 1 and 2. We're then going to work 1 front post double crochet around the post 2 rows below. So it's quite important that we don't work around this one. We're going to work around this post here. So we yarn over the hook, insert underneath, I should move my thumb, sorry, yarn over, we're inserting around that whole post, we yarn over, bring our loop up, pull through 2 and pull through 2. We skip that stitch behind, and then we are going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. That's 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then we are working a front post double crochet around that post 2 rows below. So we're yarning over, insert through and around, that post, and work your double crochet. We skip that stitch behind and then work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches once again. 2, 3 and 4. As you can see from this section, we are creating this oval here, and we have finished this oval here by joining those 2 posts next to each other. So we're yarning over and working a front post double crochet around the next post 2 rows below. Skip the stitch behind for that post stitch and work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. And then we're working a front post double crochet again around that next one. we skip the stitch behind, and then we continue the repeat until you have just 3 stitches remaining. So you'll work your last post around this one here. So work that last repeat, working 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. We're going to work around that front post double crochet. Then we're going to work a front post double crochet around that next post stitch. Skip 1, work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4. That's number 4. Before we work that final front post double crochet around that post there. We have just 3 stitches remaining because we skipped that one, 1, 2, 3, and we're working 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches, or last stitches. So at the end of row 9, you should still have your stitch count of 32. Row 10, of course, we are making our chain of 1 and working 1 single crochet into each stitch across, maintaining that stitch count of 32. Going into row 11, we begin with that turning chain of 1, and we are ready to start by working 1 single crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1. For row 11, we're going to close up our ovals. So we start by working a left leaning front post double. So we're going to start with a single crochet into the next, and then we're going to work a front post double crochet around that same post, or that second post 2 rows below. So this was our first single crochet, that's that post. We've just worked our single crochet here, so we're working around that next post. So we're going to yarn over, we're going around that post underneath the stitch we've just worked. That's our chain 1, there's our first stitch, and we're going to work around this post here, working our front post double crochet, and that completes our first left leaning. We're going to skip that stitch behind, working a single crochet into the next stitch. Oh, squeaky, sorry. Now that will be in line with the previous post, but so we're then going to work the second part of that second left leaning, working a front post double crochet around that post 2 rows below. We're then going to work a single crochet into each of the next 2. So we skip 1 for that post stitch and work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. And then we are into our right leaning combinations. The front post double crochet right leaning combination begins with working around the post stitch. So we yarn over the hook, work around that post stitch 2 rows below. We're going to skip that stitch and work a single crochet into the next to complete that first right leaning combination, and then we're going to work the second. We start with yarning over, we're going to skip the next stitch, so we're going to skip that post and working around this post here. And then for the second part, we're going to skip that stitch and work a single crochet in line with that post just worked. So it's going to be bringing the ovals back in. So we're going to go straight into our left leaning combination once we've finished this right one. So we're going to start by making a single crochet, and then we're going to work a front post double crochet around the post underneath. So there's no spaces between these 2 posts here. So we yarn over, so we're going around this next post, right underneath that single crochet we've just worked. Oh, sorry about the squeakiness. And that should be right next to that post we've just worked. We skip the stitch behind, working a single crochet into the next, and we're working our front post double crochet around that post stitch 2 rows below. We're then going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2. We skip 1 behind for that post stitch, so that's 1 and 2, and we're ready for our right leaning combination. So we yarn over, working around that post 2 rows below, skip 1 stitch and work your single crochet directly behind that front post you've just worked. For the second one, we are going to skip that first post, working around the second one. So there's the post we've worked. We skip the next, working around the next post. We skip one stitch, working in line with the post we've just worked to make that next single crochet. I'm going to repeat that together one final time. We're going to work our left leaning combination. So we single crochet into the next. We're ready to work a front post double crochet around that post directly underneath that single crochet. We skip one stitch, single crochet into the next for our second left leaning, working the front post element around that post stitch 2 rows below. We're skipping one for that post stitch, and then we're working one single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches, and then we're ready for our final right combination. So we're yarning over and working around that post stitch 2 rows below. Skip one, we work a single crochet in line with that post stitch we've just made, and then for our final right stitch combination, we're skipping one, working around that next post stitch. So we skip one, and it's quite close to the edge, so it's a bit fiddly. Make sure you don't loop yourself. Bring that loop back up, pull through 2, and there's only one stitch left to work, and we are working a single crochet into that one. Whew. At the end of row 11, you should still have your stitch count of 32, and row 12 is a turning chain of 1 and working one single crochet into the top of each stitch across. Continue on, and I will meet you for row 13. Going into row 13, we begin with that chain of 1, and we're going to work a single crochet into the same as our chain 1 and into the next stitch. We're then going to work our left post combination. So we start with a single crochet into the next before working a post stitch around that post stitch. We're going to work a second left leaning combination. So we start with a single crochet, and then we work a front post around that front post, and then we're going into working 2 right leaning combinations. So we start our right leaning by working our front post double crochet, we yarn over and work around that post 2 rows below, and then we are going to work a single crochet in line with that post stitch. Remember, because we've got 2 post stitches together, we have to skip 2 stitches, one for the left post stitch and one for the right leaning post stitch. So we're working our single crochet in line, making sure we have 2 stitches unworked in between. We're going to work our second right leaning combination. So we yarn over and work our front post around that post stitch 2 rows below. We skip one and work our single crochet in line with that post stitch. And then we're going to work one single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So that's 1 and 2, and we are right back to working that pattern repeat, beginning with 2 left leaning combinations followed by 2 right leaning combinations. So we start by working a single crochet into the next for that first left leaning combination. Work your post stitch around that post stitch 2 rows below. We're going to skip one stitch, working a single crochet into the next, and then working our front post around that last front post 2 rows below. We're going straight into our right leaning combination. So we yarn over, insert underneath that next post stitch. Remember, we've got 2 post stitches together. So we've got one for the left leaning, one stitch for the right leaning post, and we're working our single crochet in line with that post stitch. For our second right leaning combination, we work our front post double around that next post stitch, skip one, and working our single crochet in line with the previous post stitch. Single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then we're ready to work that repeat again. We're starting with a left leaning combination, so we do our single crochet first, and then work our front post around the post 2 rows below. Skip one, ready to work your next single crochet. We're working the post stitch around that post stitch again. We're going straight into that right leaning combination, so we start with our front post. So that stitch is for our left leaning, this stitch is for our right leaning post. So we're going to work a single crochet in line with that previous post stitch. Then we're going to work our second right leaning combination. So we're yarning over and working around that very last post stitch. We're skipping one, working that single crochet that belongs to that right leaning combination, and we're left with 2 stitches, ready to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. So for row 14, we are doing a repeat of row 4. So we're doing our turning chain of 1 and working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. And I am going to take you through row 15 just so you can follow the pattern repeat nice and easily with this video. Going into row 15, we're making our turning chain of 1, and we are really just repeating row 9, 1 single crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1, and then we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the next 2 stitches. I'm going to work a front post double crochet around that front post 2 rows below, and then we're skipping the stitch behind for that post stitch, working 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. We're working a front post double crochet around the next post stitch and repeating that, working 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches again. We finish the repeat working 1 front post double crochet around that post 2 rows below. So continue on working 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches before working around that post stitch 2 rows below until you have just 3 stitches remaining. I'm just working 1 single crochet into each of the last 3 stitches for the end of row 15. And then we are ready to do our row repeat. So at the moment we've done rows 1 up to 15, and then for row 16 all the way through to row 40, we're going to repeat row 4 to 15 2 more times and then finish with a repeat of row 4. The rows are grouped together in the timestamps below for you, so you can watch the row that you're working on. If you have purchased the pattern, you will have found that there is a really handy pattern repeat tick sheet for you to use so that you don't have to get lost when you're doing all of these repeats. But yeah, we are just repeating rows 4 to 15 2 more times and then finally repeating row 4, and then I'm going to meet you back here so we can edge our squares together. So once you have worked those 2 repeats of rows 14 to 15, you should be looking probably a little bit neater than this actually, but there we are. Make sure you have worked that final repeat of row 4, so you've ended row 40 on that single crochet row, because that will make sure that you've got the right row count. And we are going to edge these squares in single crochet all the way around. So we're going to do a chain of 1 to begin our edging, and it starts by working 1 single crochet into the same stitch as your chain 1, and then we're working a single crochet into each of the next 31 stitches, which will take us over to our corner. So we're working into the top of row 40. And then into our corner, we are working 2 single crochets. So that's 1 and 2, a chain of 2, and a further 2 single crochets, all into that corner space. We're then going to rotate and work across our row ends, and we're going to have to not work into every row end because we have 40 rows, but we only want to work 31 stitches down to where that slip knot is. 1, 2, and I'm going to skip one. So I'm skipping that hole and working into that next one. So that's number 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then I'll skip another one. So skip that one. There's 7, 8 and 9, maybe skip another one. 10, 11 and 12, skip another one. 13, 14 and 15. So I should be about halfway down now, and I'm at 15 stitches, which is good. So we're going to skip one, so that's 16, 17, 18, skip one, 19, 20, 21, I'm going to do 22 here and then skip one, so 23, 24, 25, skip one, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, ooh, 30, well that seems very lucky, 31. So we're going to work our next corner into that space. So to make it so it doesn't create a hole, I've inserted my hook and I've got my slip knot to the back of my hook, and I work that first single crochet. Then so I can weave that end in, I'm going to go back in to work the second single crochet, but I'm going to bring the tail over so I can work over it. So that's 2 single crochets. We're doing a chain of 2, and into that same chain we are working a further 2 single crochets. I just did a slip stitch. Let's try that again. So that's 1 chain, 2 chains, and then same. So 1, there we are, and 2. So that's our corner worked. So we've got 2 single crochets, a chain 2 and 2 single crochets, all where that slip knot was. And then we're going to work onto the other side of our beginning chain. Now obviously I've made it, because I worked into my back bumps, I have that beautiful edging there, so I can just work into what looks like stitches. And we're going to work 31 across to get to our next corner. And then once again into the corner we are working 2 single crochets, so that's 1, 2, a chain of 2, and slightly rotate to work the next 2 single crochets back into that same corner space. And then we are back to working across our row ends once again, working 31 single crochets across these row ends, so we're not working into that final corner because we're going to finish that there. So go ahead and work the same way we did for the other edge, working those 31 single crochets into those row ends. And as a gentle reminder, I kind of work 3 stitches and then skip one. And that's my 31st stitch into those row ends. We're at our final corner where we first started, working across row 40. So we're going to make 2 single crochets, a chain of 2, and 1 further single crochet, and then, oh, squeak, and I dropped it. See, it throws me out when I squeak. So 1 final single crochet, and then we need to join to that first single crochet of the round with a slip stitch. And then we are ready to fasten off. Nice long tail for weaving that end in. And that's all that's left to do. And of course, maybe block that square because it doesn't even look square, but I assure you it will. Just my tension, I think. So for your Heritage 8 blanket, we are making 3 of each square, not 8, don't worry, but there are 8 different designs. I have popped the playlist in the top comment for you so you can find all of the videos for each of the designs. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this challenge. This is one of the most challenging squares. Finding those placements for that next few rows of ovals is a bit of a challenge. So congratulations on getting this square made, and I will see you in the next video.